Hey there, League of Controversy fans. It is your host and commissioner here, Bragan Kelly 11, back for the first time in a couple years, actually. We're bringing back the preseason podcast. I am joined here, as always, with H Tennis.
Hello and welcome all.
And as a very special surprise, because you guys have been so good in the last 2 years, I have brought on the legendary Panda Man. I don't have a little applause button on this thing, unfortunately, but if there was, just know that there would be a fake round of applause going for you. For those of you that don't know, Panda played the game. Gosh, you've been away for a couple of years now, I think, and
Yeah,
is actually the co-founder of League of Controversy. Fortunately, had to step away before we could fully get things going, but it's really great to have you back now, man. How you been?
yeah, it's good to be back. It's gonna be fun to make some things up and just see where the conversation takes us. So it's good to be back. Good to be
Yeah.
back.
Talk about things that you know nothing of. It's what I'm all
Mm-hmm.
about. So we're just
Yep.
going to be just like we do every time for these little preseason pods. We're just going to be going down the list. I have this hot, fresh list directly from the Vegas Sport Book of this year's projected over/under win totals. So we're just going to be going in order, starting with the AL East, working our way down to the NL West. Just like I said, this is from Vegas. This has nothing to do with me, tennis, or Panda. I don't want anybody coming for me for what these numbers, mean to you. So we're just gonna jump right into it. Um, the Orioles last season, they were coming off an ALDS loss. They won 94 games, won the division for the first time in the history of the league. And this year they are projected at 93 and a half wins.
Yeah, so if you look at their lineup, they're projected to have Willie Calhoun in left field, which is a big upgrade from last year's left fielder Chad Pinder. And I know that Willie Calhoun sometimes has adventures in the field, like often runs weird routes, often just misses balls in the sun that he should catch. But they're returning like major pieces on defense, including Abel Lee, Litteris in center, Big Bat Shed Long at the top, and their whole rotation. So if you fancy them to win as many games as they did last year, which I do, I'm taking the over on 93 and a half, and I think they should be very competitive for another division title.
Man, I'm a little suspect about this bullpen. I've seen better bullpens, and I guess the only thing they have going for them is the AL seems to be a little bit weaker than the National League, just outside of maybe Detroit. And you really don't have those powerhouse teams like some of the National League teams that put forward, like Pittsburgh and the Dodgers. So um, with the bullpen and just a lineup that I don't know if they can hit consistently all year long. I honestly, flying by the seat of my pants, I'd put them at the under. I think they might still win the division, but I don't see them hitting 94, 95 wins.
And I'm not going to be weighing in on these. I guess I should have led with that. I will have the preseason preview little article coming out in a couple of days. So if you guys want to hear my takes on any of these teams, then you guys can check that out as soon as it's out. We are moving down to the Blue Jays, who last year finished with an 86 and 76 record. They lost the wild card game to the White Sox. Didn't make any moves to my knowledge, in the offseason. Just kind of stayed where they're at. Didn't really have any guys up for contract. So they're just kind of rolling with what they had last year. And their projected win total is set at 84 and a half.
Yeah, it looks like they're spending another year of developing their core, and it's a fantastic core. You know, you have Corky Marinara at the top of that rotation, and Mick Basketball also, like, he's developing. He's 25 now. He had a really good spring, and he looks to be taking a step forward. Ultimately, like 84 and a half, it's a couple games above 500. I'm looking at the hitters they have, and especially the defense they're playing, and I'm not sure if they can get to 84 and a half. But I do like this team. I think they will be competitive for a while in the division, but ultimately I'm going to take the under.
Yeah, Toronto's had a rough spring training, but obviously they've been playing some different guys. I don't ever know the points of playing random guys for spring training. It just makes no sense to me, especially on Pen and Chase, because it's not like it gets them anything. So that was kind of interesting. But at the same time, I do like their bullpen significantly better than what Baltimore is putting out. And I think that's going to help them in the long run just win more games than Baltimore. And I like their hitting, so I'm gonna have to go with the over on this one. I really think with their core back and with things looking the same, I think they're gonna go over 84 wins. So
There we go. 2 for 2 disagreements.
yeah, that's just how this is always gonna go, just straight up.
You feel the tension from here.
Whatever you say, I'm just gonna go with the opposite.
So now we're going to the Big Apple, and we're going to talk about the Yankees. The Yankees last year had one of the better seasons they've had in recent memory. They went an exact 81-81, did not make the playoffs. Aaron Boone's coming in for his 10th season. Doesn't seem like they're ready to let go of him yet, but he hasn't produced many winning teams. Their win total this year is expected to be at 78.5, so less than what they were last year.
Yeah, you have to wonder if Aaron Boone from Hutz,
Go for it. I cut you off.
Oh, my bad. Aaron Boone, he's struggling. He's trying to get his guys, and they brought in Joey Gallo, who has had some amazing seasons in the recent future. And, he is getting a little bit older, so you wonder if the Yankees are just kind of bringing in older guys on big money to finish their contracts off, their careers off, rather. But it looks like they may be in a little better shape than last year. Last year, they won 81 games. I know they got a little bit lucky to do that, but in this division, which doesn't look too strong, I think they can get to 78.5. So I'm going to take the over.
All right. So riddle me this: why do you sign a 32-year-old outfielder who we'll give him credit, has hit fairly decently, but you're going to sign him for $14, $14 million, whatever you want to call it, for 3 years? To watch him begin to eventually decline here, it just makes no sense, especially for where this team is at. You've got a very weak lineup. You've got pitching that is okay, and then a bullpen that's just disastrous. So I don't know what New York was doing this offseason. Instead of spending their money on the bullpen, they went out and signed a veteran outfielder to, I don't know, do something for them. Eat up payroll and sit on the bench and eat Twinkies in a couple of years. I'm not entirely sure, but it just seems like a huge waste of money when they had clearly some significant needs in the bullpen that just didn't feel like addressing, I guess. I don't know.
Well, after winning the World Series 2 years ago, the Rays completely fell apart last year. Bean Snap kind of went inactive. I believe we had a sub-10 rank pitcher accumulate over 200 innings. It was a real mess. So anything's really a step up from what we saw last year, as they dropped 101 games, easily the worst season they've had since the league started. They are projected to make a comeback this year, with the win total being set at 75.5, but they do have 4 shortstops and only 3 outfielders on their roster. So you guys take this one.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I'm looking up the stats, and they had a former third-round pick. It's great that their third-round pick made the league, because you don't expect many guys drafted that late to do so. But he was out there, pitched in 105 games, went 18-27 with a WHIP over 2. That's just malpractice at that point. And now he's not even on a team, so you wonder if they just ruined his career. But glad to see that new ownership is stepping up. They're kind of restoring the Rays to respectability. And I mean, this team, the core is still very talented. You got hitters, the 2 Lows, or Lau. I think one of them's Low and one of them's Lau.
Yeah,
I did this 2 years ago. Yeah, I had the same issue.
Mm-hmm. I think Brandon is Lau.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah.
Don't shoot the messenger.
We know their issue is with shortstops, which means that they have to DH one and play another at third. But ultimately, this team isn't a 61 win team, and 75.5 is like pretty high compared to what they did last year, but I think they should be able to surpass it, especially if they get good innings out of their rotation and Colin Poche pitches really well.
Yeah, I'd mark it down. I think this team's going to win significantly more games than the Yankees. I know that they didn't have a great rotation last year, but they seem to have fixed that this year going into this season. And then you also add on top of that a bullpen that, is honestly probably similar to what the Yankees have, but at least they've got somebody who could throw. And then we've got this year's special talent, Trent Randall, ranked 1. And I'm kind of curious to see what his role this year is going to be for the Tampa Bay Rays. So that's definitely a player to keep an eye on. Probably a huge difference maker in the back of that pen. So, yeah, you guys know.
Now to wrap up the AL East, we're going to talk about the Red Sox. And the Red Sox have struggled quite a bit in recent years, but they do seem to be taking some steps in the right direction. They signed former Padres and I think Royals pitcher Richard Johnson to a 10-year deal. He's only 25 years old. And they did make a little head scratching. Yeah.
Does that contract go backwards? Okay. Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off, but
yes, I do. I do believe there's a negative raise on its front-loaded contract. They did spend a top 10, might have even been a top 5 draft pick on a U progression designated hitter, and Ronald Burgundy seemed to be a little bit of a question mark. However, he's
got 200 energy.
He will never get tired. He will work relentlessly to bring Boston back to the glory days. No days off.
Jeez, and he doesn't even have a secondary position.
Nope, he's a DH through and through.
Oh my goodness! So you put him in anywhere, and he's that -2 on top of
the errors. Yeah,
would just be astronomical.
Yeah.
He's there to hit. He knows what he's about. The win total.
His youth at the batting cages.
The projected win total for the Red Sox is set at 70.5, which would be 4.5 wins up from last season's record of 66 and 96.
Yeah, you kind of wonder what Richard Johnson was thinking. He's come up with the Padres, like one with the Royals. He's pitched decently well. This league offense is a bit inflated. He had a great 2022, 2023. It's tailed off a little bit since then. But, just to be signing a 10-year deal with the Red Sox right now with no aim, and I don't know if they have a direction even, but one of their top 2 pitchers, Tony Gonsolin, can't go deep into games. He leaves in the 5th inning every game. I don't understand why, but it's not looking great right now. And unfortunately, I do have to take the under at 70.5.
I think this team in a weak division, I think they're going to get quite a few easy wins, beat up on some of the other teams as well. And their division split a lot of series. But yeah, no, I think I'm going to have to buck the trend. I don't know if I can make a case for them being over this total. Just the lineup from top to bottom looks sketchy at best. The hitting is just not there. They're just not going to be able to. They're not going to be able to score enough runs compared to what they're going to be giving up with guys like Braxton Smith and Dennis Barra, whatever his name is. Yeah. I honestly, I just don't see them being able to make up the difference. And then give it 2 years down the road, and you're going to have this guy in a massive deal, and everybody else behind him is either going to be a little bit better or no change or a heck of a lot worse. And so that's not a recipe for success moving forward. So
we're moving along now to the AL Central. And we will first be talking about the number 1 seed and overall disappointment, playoff disappointment, I should say. Detroit Tigers finished with 108 wins last year, but did get knocked out by the eventual losers of the World Series, the Houston Astros. This year, they are the only team that's actually projected to win 100 or more games. There are a couple sitting at 99.5, but of course, we'll get to those later. The Tigers are projected to have 100.5 wins.
Yeah, after last year, that was a very fun conversation with the owner that we had in the debrief. There was some yelling, there was some confusion, not understanding why. What it was like. We put in our best effort, and people are very results oriented in this business. But I mean, we might be on our last leash, but we're coming back strong. We have some turnover in the bottom part of the lineup. Pete Alonso is no longer here, but we think that Oscar Reed should be able to hold down the mantle he's had. He's pretty young, 27. He's had good seasons in the past, and we're counting on him to take a step forward. As well as the rotation, we're bringing in James Ritz, who is a rookie. Excuse me, he's not a rookie, but he's like on rookie contract because he didn't reach the threshold last year. Counting on him to be better, as well as the top three in the rotation, just to carry us along with the bullpen. I think this team is still very good. I think that we can win over 100 games, and I will take the over.
Who's your catcher?
Our catcher is Ralph Wilson. He is a utility man. He actually has played all over the field in the past.
Oh, okay. All right, I was a little worried there because I was like, you're gonna get 100 wins with Billy Castro. That sounds promising. I like the rotation, and I think that's where it's going to carry them. But I don't know. I think 100 wins is a tall task, and Pennant Chase is very quirky, and it likes to deal out some injuries. And I don't know. I'd be a little sketch about the depth on the overall roster, and one guy goes down, and suddenly you've got Billy Castro playing second base, and nobody else covering that position. So I'd be a little worried about that, and because of that, I'd probably put them under that, just because I think Pennant Chase is not very forgiving sometimes when it comes to that kind of stuff. So that would be where I would put it, just because it's your team, and we can't agree on, oh yeah, you're going to get 125 wins this year or anything crazy like that. So
yeah. That's when the sponsors leave the podcast. They accuse us of bias.
Well, they accuse you of bias. I've never been biased.
Now, when we talk about Cincinnati, we're going to get 145 wins. It's fine. It's all good.
Now we're going to be going to the White Sox, who've been nipping at the Tigers' heels, maybe making them a little bit uncomfortable, though maybe he won't admit it on this podcast. They went out, they signed two great starting pitchers in Zach Gallen, Blake Salazar, picked up third baseman Tommy Edman, and also arguably the best reliever in the game, Salvador Ramirez. They right now are projected at 93.5 wins, which is 5.5 up from their 88-74 finish last year.
Yeah, every time I was sitting in my office, we're trying to make deals like for upgrades, and everyone, and all of a sudden my intern keeps coming in and saying like the White Sox should sign another player. It was getting crazy at one point, and I know that they're going to be paying for a lot of these deals on the back end, but some of the crazy raises that they're giving them, but we just have to hold them off for now. And that's all that matters. I think one of the more exciting debuts is going to be from Brycene Buxton, who, of course, is related to the infamous Buxton, who is just a legend. And he played really well in spring, got on base at a 347 clip, is very fast, and is always a threat on the base paths. And I think he could be like an X factor for this team. As for the over-under of 93.5, yeah, like if you spend money in free agency, you should expect it to pay off. And I think this team could exceed 93.5 wins. Over.
So diplomatic. I respect it.
Yeah,
I don't want to be on the other side of it. I don't want to be telling them that they're under and then they win like 115 games.
Yeah, I'd be a little worried about this team if I was Detroit. I think their bullpen is going to be lights out this year, which is going to help. And I like their depth a lot better than maybe where Detroit is sitting. I'm a little biased too. They offered me a $12 million contract, but only gave me like $1 raises. And so I told them, nah, you got to do better. And they turned me down. So, that's just kind of how it typically goes. But they were handing out all these ginormous raises and then didn't give me one. So that's fine. We see how it is. But this is going to be a team in like 4 years that's going to be in shambles with the ridiculous contracts that they have eating up like 75% of their cap space. But for now, it's a pretty well constructed team, and I would definitely take the over on this and feel a lot more confident than an over taking the over with Detroit.
So last year's third place team, Cleveland, uh, should we change their name to the Guardians? I just thought about that. Huh. I guess we can leave it up to the owner. Anyway, got sidetracked. Indians last year just missed the 500 clip, a game below at 80 and 82. Missed the playoffs. They did make a few additions in the offseason, but not sure if it's going to be enough to get them back in that playoff race. Vegas currently has them at 81.5.
Yeah, it's just a shame that the Cleveland careers of Bieber, Verlander, Savale, and Lindor, who's one of the better shortstops in the league, are ending up this way. They don't seem to be able to do much with the back end of their lineup and rotation in terms of depth, and that's what's costing them year after year. I guess it's just been last year, but they're projected for another third place finish in the division, and I think they'll struggle to get there a little bit. It'll be a fight for third. 81.5. That means over 500. I don't know if I could do it, so I'm going to say the under. There's just a lot of holes in this team.
Yeah, the under. And I just, for the first time since I've joined the league, just saw Justin Verlander's contract. And it made me weep internally. What in the world is that? $23 million already with 7 more years and $5 million.
There was quite a bit more for him, as I recall.
He's 43 years old.
Hey,
he doesn't stop.
He's going to be 50 when this thing runs out, and he's going to be making $50 million a year.
And then he's going to sign another 10-year deal. He's going to keep trucking along.
Oh man, poor Cleveland. I mean, this is my hometown real life team, and if we ever did something that stupid, which our owners are way too cheap to do, that would just make me cry. But yeah, I don't even have any comments. Like, I saw that contract and my whole brain just shut down. So as far as 81.5, 88.5, whatever the number was, I definitely put them under. This team's going to struggle.
Wow, no faith in your hometown boys. That's a shame. You hate to see that. But now we're going to talk about my hometown boys, who I'm not any more confident in, and that's not to. It's no fault of the current owner. Last ownership got caught up in some things, and fortunately, the team took quite a hit in this offseason. Didn't retain any of their young stars. And that is the Kansas City Royals. Manager Don Cheadle somehow still has a job despite several underperforming seasons, but he's a hometown guy, so I guess the city is happy to keep him around. The Royals last year finished with 79 wins, missed the playoffs, and are projected to fall off to a 68.5 win mark this year.
Yeah, one thing you expected from last year with the respect to the Royals is you expected Ellison, who is their prize prospect, to develop a little bit more. He put up good numbers in his rookie season, but he came back in his sophomore season and underperformed in all categories. He basically didn't improve on anything, batting average, on base, slugging, and it was very poor to say the least. We'll see what he comes back with in year 3, but that's kind of one of the pieces that they want to focus on. And also, in addition, in a case of life imitating art, I noticed that the Royals picked up Zach Greinke in their reunion as well. Like, he was just signed by the Royals. And although I'm not sure if he projects to make the rotation at the moment, that's always a fun little wink at the history and real life. Ultimately, in terms of the actual wins on paper, 60.5. Yeah, I think Rick Stanley could carry him to enough wins to get there. He had a great spring, even though he went 1-4, despite having a 2.75 ERA, which maybe is a nod to the rest of the team and what's going on with the Royals, but I think they can get to this total, and I'm taking the over on 68.5.
I think this team's going to get lit up. Oh my goodness. I mean, you just look at the bullpen, and so you start with Cooper, fine, Hawkins, fine, and then all of a sudden you've got rank 39, rank 35, rank 28, rank 39. I mean, these guys, I don't even want to say their names. They're just not even worth it. 32, 27, 32. What were they doing? And then you sign Zach Greinke. Yep, okay, sounds good. That's going to go really well. Oh my goodness. And then you get to the draft and you're like, okay, so the pitching isn't bad enough. So let's go ahead. Pick number 1. Let's draft an outfielder. Yay. That sounds really good. Okay. Let's put him in the minor leagues. Yep. Even better. Sounds good. No, this team's going to be horrible this year. I'd be surprised if they crack 60 wins, let alone 68.
Wow. That really actually kind of hurt me. I forgot that we were talking about pennant chase for a minute, and I took all of that personally, directly to heart. So,
don't worry.
We'll just pull this knife out of here. All right, moving on to the Minnesota Twins.
Just wait till we get to the Marlins.
Oh, we're gonna skip the Marlins. You don't have to worry about that. I'll save everybody some time because I can promise you the owner doesn't care either.
What team are we on?
We're on the Minnesota Twins, wrapping up the AL Central. They finished last year with a 66-96 record, just missed the playoffs. This year they are set to have 62.5 wins. And you never really can tell where they're going to be with a Mets rock-owned team. He could decide he wants to completely tear everything down to 10 ranks across the board and get set up for next year, or he might just let it ride out how it is. So good luck predicting this one.
The thing is, I mean, I don't really know what you can do with the rotation to tear it down even further. You have Felix Pena out there with like 64 pitches to start at 27 ranks. Caesar Fletcher, Julio Teheran, Jeffrey Rodriguez, and of course the one savior, D. Perry. He's probably going to have to pitch like 270 innings this year just to save the rest of the rotation in the bullpen. But honestly, I mean, it's sad to see that Byron Buxton's last year under contract with Minnesota has to end this way. And I don't even know if they're going to get to their projected total of 62.5. One of the reasons that I took the over on the Royals is that Minnesota just looks like it's like at some point it's going to fall off a cliff and, under pretty convincingly.
Man, I so badly want to disagree with you and take the over. Yeah, let's do it. All right, so I'm going to take the over on this team just for fun and try to make a convincing argument out of it. I think Polanco and Buxton understand that they're playing for contracts next year with decent teams that will pay them $27 million plus 5 over 35 years to come join their team. And I think D. Perry will probably throw 325 innings this year with his 76 stamina. And Zach Little will be his innings will not be little, I'll tell you that much. And Tony Harrington, he's going to get a workout. But I still think that by some miracle, because the rest of the AL is not that great, the Royals will get some pennant chase magic, and not Royals, the Twins will get some pennant chase magic, and will actually come out on top of the Royals, and will definitely have more than 62 wins this year.
Definitely, he says. Some real confidence. He said it with his chest. He means business. Moving on
to fun to listen to it during the playoffs.
Yeah, we're gonna have to. I'm gonna have to cut some clips out of this. I'm gonna cut some clips out of this and bring
Twins
them back
for when
we do the playoff edition.
Royals are in the playoffs. Twins got 43 wins, and the Yankees are, won the division or something asinine like that.
Now we're starting off the AL West is actually not the defending AL champion Houston Astros. It is the Seattle Mariners who owner Polsky has been slowly working on building them up through the draft for the last several years, and finally has his guys up and ready to go. Decided to make a couple big splashes in free agency with SB Hedger and Pete Alonso. It looks like the Mariners are going to be firing on all cylinders this year, and this might be the start of their window to chase a title. And Vegas happens to think so as well because their win total is set at 96.5.
When you expect a team to make strides of over 10 wins a season over season, it's always tough. But I think that the Mariners could be the one exception. Not only do they have the additions that you just mentioned, BK, in free agency, but also they have arguably the best rising player in baseball, Julio Cruz, who has had two great seasons, including an All-Star campaign last year, but looks to take a huge step forward in year three. He had a monster spring. He had over 400 with an over 500 on base. And I know it's like against some scrub pitchers. I know it's only 28 games, but he looks like a monster out there. They also have SB Hedger, who you mentioned, should be a great improvement for the rotation after toiling away in St. Louis. And the bullpen, of course, as is the usual for a Polsky team, is fantastic. So I think that I'm going to, even though they only won 84 games last year, I am going to take the over on 96.5. I think they'll be fantastic.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with you on this one. I think Seattle has done a great job of putting together the rotation in their bullpen. And I mean, let's be honest, this is the first time I'm looking at most of these rosters. But overall, as I look at the American League across the board, there aren't a whole lot of teams that are well put together from top to bottom, starting pitching and rotation wise. And this team is one of them. Again, the thing that always makes me nervous is when you look at a team who has those stars but really lacks the depth behind them, because pennant chase is really cruel, and all it takes is 10 games and suddenly Pete Alonso isn't hitting anymore, and you've got to go with Fred Freeman, and now suddenly he's letting the ball go through his legs and he's striking out every other at bat. And then Julio, he chucks the bat and hits Julio in the head, and then Julio's out. And now you've got Elvis Andrews, who hasn't played since 1993, and so now you've just got a whole bunch of just shenanigans going on. So I'm going to take the over and agree because of the pitching, but if injuries hits this team, it's going to be a long season as far as production at the plate and also in the field.
I just want to say before we move on that the hypothetical scenario you just described happened to be exactly word for word in a different league. So I know how much craziness happened. Like you got bats flying and all sorts of stuff. So I would be wary of that if I were the Mariners.
Yeah, we're not throwing any hints out there. Mariners should probably beef up on the security because we've got some.
Well, it can happen to anybody. They say that there's actually a 1 in 12 chance that you'll get hit by a stray bat at a baseball game. So always keep your eye out. And we are moving on to the Texas Rangers, who have a formerly deceased manager at the helm, Johnny Oates, coming in for his second season. As many of you remember, he was thawed out sometime last spring, and they realized that since he was dead for a while, that his contract hadn't technically expired, so he was still under contract for a few more years. So they said, "Hell, let's just bring him in again." So Johnny Oates is running things again, and they are projected to do better than the 73 wins from last year. The current mark is set at 83.5.
Yeah, one explanation for why they're playing elite defensive shortstop Trevor Story at second is probably because their manager was, not around last year or a few years ago to see any of that. But yeah, that's all good. Story's great as second, even though he makes a few errors. He has fantastic range and chases down all these balls. In terms of this team, I think I like the look of it. It's pretty solid, even though their rotation is solid all around. Bullpen is a little bit weak at the back end, but Their closer, Fukajita, is very solid. He had an okay year last year. His whip was a bit high, but in spring he had a great campaign, and he looks to be building on his 35 save campaign last year. And like it's always tough to compete with a great team in the division, but I think the Rangers can get over 83.5, and I'm taking the over.
Finally, a team with some depth. I mean, holy cow! If somebody gets hurt, they'll finally have somebody to play behind them. I got to take the over simply because they have a catcher named Benjamin Craig, which is my actual name.
Wow.
So
Huh.
I'm sure he should be starting, right? I would imagine. If not, whoever is in charge of Texas, we're going to have a conversation about that. But overall, I would take the over. And I think that this team, again, the West is just so hard to predict with a lot of these teams seemingly coming out of nowhere and really, taking those steps up. So this will be an interesting team to watch this year. But yeah, I think with the depth that they have and some of the pieces they've added, I would definitely take the over on 83.5 wins.
He is starting. I just checked the projections and looked pretty bad in spring, but it's spring, so who knows?
Oof.
They also have a third baseman that you just dropped into free agency in Suarez,
Oh yeah.
and he's projected to start now. So
Well, hey, that's what? Why are they starting him?
Hey, if as the saying goes, if you have awesome depth, you simply must start a guy that you just picked off the street.
Why are they starting him?
they'll moving on to the Houston Astros, which you wouldn't have
Oh, his spring
expected.
was horrible. Sorry.
There you go. There you have it.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but
No,
his
you're
spring
good.
was horrible. 118 average. So yeah. All right.
There
Anyways,
you have it. Uh, now, didn't really expect to be talking about the Astros third here in the AL West, but here we are, the defending AL champion Houston Astros, after losing some pieces in the offseason, are only projected to hit 81.5 wins this year, which would be a major step down from the 99 that they took last season. Do you think that the Astros are done for? They should start to retool?
I think so. They're clearly making interesting decisions. They're bringing back Miles Straw, who was fantastic for the Reds the past since 2022 when he had an All-Star campaign, and they're putting him back in left field, which he hasn't played since 2021 with these very same Houston Astros. And you know what he did that year? He had made 12 errors in the field. He had a 949 fielding percentage. And they just decided, like that worked really well. We're going to bring him back 6 years later, stick him in the outfield again. Everything will be fine. I mean, sometimes I know that this team was great in the past and they have a great ownership and whatnot, but I do question some of the decisions being made. Oh, excuse me, it's a new owner. So he wasn't even around for when that happened. So it's like, you should look into the history books maybe. But yeah, I mean the rotation is no aces outstanding, but they do have some quality starters across the board, and who knows, maybe Ryu can turn it around after these past few years. So it's going to be tough to keep up their winning ways, but 81.5 for such a talented core. Oh, that's tough. That's actually I might just they're going to finish with 81.5 wins somehow. They'll get into a 27 tie. I'm going to pick one. I don't really want to make a call.
I mean,
Try disagreeing with that.
How can you not like this team with Robert Ford and Stuart Lawton and all these great, signings that are so much better? I mean, I could see why you have Miles Straw playing in the outfield because you don't have an outfield to begin with. The only thing that this team has going for it is their bullpen. They were smart. They would blow that up. Outside of, yeah, you've got a bullpen that's going to age too fast for the rest of it, and just too many other pieces that are needed. So if I were them, I would tear it down. I don't think you have to do a complete tear down because you do have a lot of younger pieces on it, but it's time to just say, gather up those draft picks, trade away some of these older veteran players that are aging, and pack it in for a year or two. But then again, it's the AL West, which, I mean, American League just seems to be a little bit weaker across the board. So you never know. Maybe they'll end up with 85 wins and just prove us all wrong, because, that's how pennant chase works. So
Now moving along to the Los Angeles Angels, who last year went 71-91. Of course, missed the playoffs. They made some interesting signings. They went out and got international free agent pitcher Masato Morishita. They got former Gold Glover Colton Wong and Max Kepler. But at the same time, they lost one of their best guys in Jeremy Wilkinson, lost a slugger in Josh Bell, and of course, arguably the best reliever in the league, Salvador Ramirez. So it doesn't seem that they made enough moves to put them much higher or lower. However, Vegas does have them set at 67.5 right now.
Yeah, I think they got two nice pitchers in Deshane and Morishita, but it's going to be tough. Like Mike Trout's last year under contract, he's never hit this low in the lineup. He's currently hitting fifth, I believe, and just there wasn't a lot done to this team in the offseason. You look, they only have $7 million to spend, but somehow they only have 25 guys in the whole organization, which is like that's probably not going to cut it in this day and age. You're going to have injuries, like Panda says, and all sorts of weird stuff happening, and you got to be prepared to deal with that. And the Angels, who are purported to be a major league team, I'm not sure if they are one, but they are somehow trying to limp into the beginning of the season, which you usually try to limp into the end of the season, but they're somehow doing it at the beginning. And yeah, I think 67.5 is generous. I don't see them clearing that.
I wouldn't disagree with you, but I can't. This team would be lucky to hit 67, even 68 wins. I think more realistically, you're looking at can they hit 60? This just top to bottom again. You've got a couple of good signings in the starting pitching, which maybe if they hit this number is where it comes from, because they get enough good starts out of them. But again, the lineup from top to bottom is going to be shaky in a lot of different areas. You just got not a whole lot of depth there. And I really think it's going to be hard for them to even come close to that. So, yes, I would, as much as I hate to do this, I have to agree. I have to take the under. But then again, it's the American League. So who knows? Maybe they'll shock us all and end up with like 85 wins because Mike Trout hits 57 home runs and Schwarber comes out of, his aging process and hits another, 75 or something crazy. But I really don't see this team really hitting that 67 win. So I'm going to take the under.
Now we're to wrap up the AL West. We're going to talk about the Oakland Athletics, who at one point were the three-time defending AL champions, but now they're just kind of there. Last season, they won 63 games, lost 99, and this year they are set to be right about the same, set at 60.5 wins.
I think we all know that the A's are rebuilding right now, and I think it's actually going pretty well. I know that some of these good prospects that they have, like Rafael Eldest and Ricky Vaughn, are directly from the Tigers farm system. But Vaughn is developing into a nice reliever. He should make his major league debut this year, even if he can just prevent the wild pitches from happening, or like knocking guys' heads off. I think that would be a benefit for them. And it's really funny because, like, when you're looking at this team, I thought James Bearpaw wouldn't be in Oakland A anymore like 2 years ago, and he's still toiling away on this team. You wonder if they're going to move him at some point, or if there isn't even a demand for it. Like, he's only 25, but maybe the league just forgot about him because he's playing on this team that no one watches. In terms of wins, 60.5 is always a very low number. That means losing 100 games. So you never know. I think they could avoid losing 100 games. I think it'll be tight, but I'll take the over.
Good. I'm going to take the under. Way under. I think this team will be lucky to win 60 games. They're going to sit right where they did last year. The only thing that would change that is if they decided it's time to bring up Eldis and let him go to work and start to get that experience. But I would take the under. And I think pitching wise, they're going to struggle. There's not really anything in the lineup outside of Bearpaw and Ross. And so, yeah, I'd take the under on this pretty easily.
Now we're going to be moving over to the NL and starting with the most stacked division in baseball, all thanks to the Marlins, of course. And that is the NL East. We're going to start it off with the New York Mets, who last year went 95-67, got dropped in the wild card. This year they are projected to take the division, but by a very slim margin. Their total is set at 88.5.
Apologies if there is some noise disturbance outside. We have the studio is having some issues right now. As we all know, we are recording this in an official podcast studio, and we are very legit. We have sponsors and all that, but apologies if there is any spillover noise. I do really like the Mets. I think that they employ one of the most underrated players in baseball, Benny the Jet Rodriguez, who once again stole over 80 bases last year and projects to do so again this year. He gets on base. He does it all. He plays solid defense, and he's just an unsung hero for this core, which features an amazing offense, including sluggers like Rendon, Lux, and Saxon. Yelich, of course. Yelich, after is now entering his 5th season with this team. He may not be an all-star caliber player anymore, but he is very, very good. As well as Garrett Cole highlighting the rotation with Kyle Douglas and an aging Jacob deGrom. I think that this is a very fantastic team, and I know that you mentioned the division issues, BK, but I think that 88.5 is pretty low for a team of this caliber, so I know they'll lose some extra games, but I'm still going to go with the over.
I'll take the under on this one. I think there are some other teams in this division that are a little bit better poised from a pitching standpoint. I feel like there's a significant drop-off when you get to the back end of the rotation on top of the back end of the bullpen. And I think over 162-game season, you're going to need those to come through. The offense is great, but can the offense hit enough to make up for the lack of pitching depth? That's the question that ultimately the Mets will have to face this year.
Now moving to the Washington Nationals, who last year finished 79-83, which was good for only 4th in the East last year. However, they did have probably the most active free agency and just overall offseason of any team, and that is reflected in the Vegas sportsbook as they are set to have 86.5 wins.
Yeah, I think that when you consider one of the most active off seasons of any team, it's fantastic. But you look at some of the moves they made, and what they didn't do was they looked at Alex Donald, who has actually played in parts of 2 seasons now and compiled basically a 485 OPS in his short stint in the majors, as well as Hank Hartman, who hit to the tune of a 500 OPS last year. And they basically said, we're going to turn over these roster spots, these spots in the lineup at shortstop and first base to these 2 rookies who may be fantastic. They may have fantastic careers. And I don't want to be eating my words in 20, 25 years when they're going into the Hall of Fame. But that's like, if you're making so many moves and you're trying to be a contender in this division and you're just turning over 2 important spots to the rookies, I question the depth and the success of this team. And ultimately, that's why I cannot go over on 86.5. I think this is still a solid playoff team, but it will be tough.
Yeah, I think this is a team that will fight for a wild card this year, solely on the back of the rotation. The rotation is pretty solid from top to bottom. And you really don't see that drop off like you see with some of the rotations where you have some of these guys that are ranked 190, up at the top, and then suddenly they got 34, down at the bottom. So that's definitely something that they've got going for them. But I agree with you. I think you've got two positions here where you have some rookies who are going to be expected to do big things on this team, and I'm just not sure that that's going to happen. So I would probably be in the same boat. I think they're going to be under on this one, but I do think that they are in that chase for a wild card spot this year.
Moving down to the Philadelphia Phillies, who finished third last year as well, projected third this year. They were also active in the offseason, picking up Cody Bellinger to, I believe, that he was signed to the most money of any position player in this free agency. Right now, they are currently set at 85.5 wins. And also, I realized that I skipped a team, but we're going to do the Phillies first. They're projected fourth. Sorry.
Okay.
I should say that the Braves are projected third. The Phillies are projected fourth, although it is close.
It's actually nice that you juxtapose these two teams because the Phillies are a direct opposite example of what the Nationals are doing, in which they brought up Max Power last year for 22 games. He hit fantastically, and they're just turning over the first base job to him, which I think is a great idea. I think he's shown that he can handle it. He had a little bit of weak spring, but with Bryce Harper and Cody Bellinger around him, he should just be hitting like a monster. Rotation does have a little bit of concerns. They're solid all throughout, but no real stud at the top. But I think that it's a well built team, and especially with DeYoung at shortstop, who is returning for his third season in Philadelphia, it's very solid. You got like good balance, and of course Joe Stostak is making his first full major league season, making his first opening day roster. And it's tough to see that this team is projected to finish fourth in the division because it is very good. But I think that, it's hard to see four teams finishing over 500 and the Phillies at 85.5. That's too much juice for me. I'm taking the under.
I don't even really have an opinion on over under with this. I think honestly, it falls in. I don't like the signing of Bellinger for this team. I think that's a lot of money for them to have committed to a single player in a division that's very strong, where they really needed to probably take that money and spend it elsewhere. I agree. I think the rotation is lacking in a lot of places. You don't have a number one. We know that there were probably 6 or 7 guys out there in free agency this year that could have stepped in and played that part, and they didn't get any of them, which I think is a huge oversight. The bullpen is okay, but again, it does have a significant drop off towards the back. So honestly, I think this team is fourth for a reason, and maybe fight for a playoff spot. But that's a lot of money to give Bellinger to hopefully have him somehow hit 150 home runs and carry this team, and I just don't see that happening. So hopefully that move doesn't come back to bite them long term as their rotation suffers.
Now we're going to talk about the actual projected third place team, which is the Atlanta Braves. I apologize to the Braves and Braves fans for that one. They're actually projected to hit the same win total as the Nationals, so tied for second, but they are listed third at 86.5. Last year, of course, the Braves were dropped in the NLDS after winning the NL East by 1 game over the Mets. I forgot what I was going to say, so you guys take it.
One could argue that the Braves were a bit lucky last year. If you look at their run differential, it was only 61, while the Mets had a run differential of 178. But you know what they say, division banners fly forever, and the Braves got one. It's funny that Vince LaSalle had his best year last year, and you think he's been around forever. He made his major league debut in 2021, but you look, and he's only 25, which is very impressive, and I think he likes it in Atlanta. He's not complaining or holding out or any of the stuff that teams, that players perhaps in other sports do when there is something that doesn't go their way, like this bridge contract. He could be making big bucks on the open market, but he's going to have to wait for another 2 years for that. The rest of the rotation is not great, to be frank, but I think that with LaSalle at the top and this amazing lineup that they have, highlighted by Albies, Horner, and Acuna, they should be in contention for the division once again. And I like them to win over 86.5 games.
You said LaSalle's not throwing a loop into things. He's happy in Atlanta? I don't know. He's in 6 games. He had a 9.45 ERA in spring training.
You think he's taking
26
spring
innings.
training to express his displeasure?
I don't know. I mean, how do you have a 2.14 whip in spring training and give up 15 hits per 9 innings? That's pretty remarkable.
I think they included his stats when he was pitching batting practice before the games.
Oh, did
That
they?
has to
Is
be
that what
it.
it was?
That has to be it.
Holy cow. I mean, I don't know. But overall, this team, again, the bullpen's going to have to carry them. The rotation is not great. But I guess if you yank players early and ride the bullpen, you might be able to um, come in and have a decent year. Again, the hitting, though, is going to struggle. And if you don't have depth in your starting rotation and you don't have the hitting, it's not going to be a good year. I'm going to go with the under.
Now, I know everybody's really been looking forward to this team. I know I haven't. And that is the Miami Marlins, of course, my team. Last year went 54 and 108, just missed our shot at the wild card and wound up falling right at the number one pick, where we picked up starting pitcher Tony Newman, who will not be in the majors next year, shooting for probably next year or the year after. Um, Called up a couple of young guys in Jake Randall and Torrey Hamilton as they hit their 90 rank threshold. Hoping to be at least fun to watch this year. The win total is set at 63 and a half.
Yeah, I think there will be some fun bringing in Pedro Serrano, who was an Oreo for the longest time, and I know he kind of got benched last year, but you're promising him a starting role, and he should be able to look to return at least to his 2024 heights when he hit 67 home runs despite only having an on base of 311, which is kind of surprising. That's one of the weirdest single season happenings in the history of the league, considering he turned around and did not do anything near that the next year. And of course, you mentioned the nice young guys and Jake Randall and Torrey Hamilton. And I know that the rotation is a mess. The bullpen leaves a lot to be desired, and the division, of course. But hopefully, Marlins fans will have something to look forward to, and the stadium is not 90% empty. That would be a win for Miami, in my opinion. 63 and 63.5. I still say the under. They're going to lose a lot of games with the stacked schedule in the division.
I'm going to take the over. This is probably the best, worst team I've seen compiled. I think their hitting is going to get them over that 63 mark. And I think the rotation will certainly not help them win games. But ultimately, I think they'll get lucky a handful of times and be able to put something together that ultimately shakes out to get them more than 63 wins. Will it be a lot more? Not sure, but I would take the over on it. I think their offense is gonna win them a couple games this year. So,
Panda, remind my secretary to give you a raise after this.
absolutely. Your secretary wrote that bit, right?
Surely remind
She sent it.
yourself to give yourself a raise later. Thank you.
Yeah,
Shirley's
exactly.
great. Absolutely adore
Yeah,
her.
yeah.
Um,
She writes good stuff.
Now we are moving to the NL Central, and with that, we are going to talk about the Pittsburgh Pirates, who have easily been the best team in the history of the league. Last year, they had a down year in losing or in winning 105 games and dropping the NLCS, but they're still the Pirates, and because of that, they are projected to hit 99 and a half wins this year.
Yeah, I think the total does look a little bit like favoring a team with a strong history, strong ownership group, but it still is very impressive. You look at Mike Soroka, and you wonder how this man has never won a Cy Young in his career. Of course, you look at, I think, five-time reigning Cy Young winner Walker Buehler, who also won in 2020 as well, and you realize, oh, that's why, but that takes nothing away from Soroka. I mean, he's probably very motivated with the chip on his shoulder. This year, he's going to be chasing that elusive Cy Young title, and he should be able to lead this fantastic rotation along with stellar bullpen to 100 wins. I will take the over.
I would take the under. The end of rotation, end of the bullpen leave a lot to be desired. Unless they're able to swing a couple moves and pick that up, I think we're going to see some struggling there. I think top to bottom too, while they definitely have a decent lineup, I think it's maybe a little bit of a step back from where they've been in years past. I can say confidently because I have no idea. But outside of that, this is a team that screams that they're going to be good, but I don't know that they're going to be 100 wins good.
Now we're moving over to the Windy City, Chicago, which is run by my younger brother, Egan Kelly, I think 8. They last season was a major improvement from what we'd seen in years past. They got themselves into a little bit of a rebuild. Won 85 games last year. We're in the playoff hunt until the end. Wound up missing it by a few games, but they were very active in the offseason, and that is reflected in their projected wins as they sit at 90.5 right now.
I think this team is a little bit of an enigma. You brought in Flaherty and Urquidy in the top two spots of the rotation, and that's fantastic, of course. When you're a team that's relatively young, you have money, you're looking to win and make that next push to the playoffs. But on the other hand, you have Tim LoCastro, who is not the greatest hitter in the history of the league. You have him slated to start at DH. You got Roberto Perez, who is fantastic defensively, but is a disaster behind the plate when he's hitting. Johnny Reynolds bringing him up, and who knows how he'll perform. He has received rave reviews in spring and from past scouting reports in previous minor league seasons, but it's definitely going to be it's very interesting to see what this team could become. I kind of don't really have an overall prediction on the Cubs because I could see it going either way. I could see them winning 100 games off the strength of their rotation where they don't really have a weak spot and their bullpen is fantastic as well. Or I could see them just totally flopping because they don't have a strong offense. And, we all know that you need offense to win. Ultimately, I've been very impressed with what Egan and the team over there has done with the rebuild. They do still have some prospects waiting in the wings, like Taylor Jordan and Rodney Ware and Callum Hill. They should be up within the next few years, but right now, I don't think they're ready to challenge the Pirates yet. I'm going to put on the over-under.
Say what you want about LoCastro, but he does have a career on-base percentage of 362. He gets hit by like 60 pitches a year, so he really likes to hug the hell out of that plate, and it shows.
That is fair.
It's not, I can respect it for a leadoff spot for that reason alone. I just wanted to throw that
little. He got hit 21 times in spring training.
Dude, they're just working on their pitches. What's going on over there?
21 times and 110 at bats. He got hit by a pitch during spring training. Yikes! That's rough. No, I like this team. I think it's probably a few pieces away from being a serious contender on the offensive side. But as far as rotation, I think you're locked. You've given a lot of these guys quite a bit of money. You don't have anybody coming up for a contract, so you're looking good there. I'd love to see them probably add a piece or two to the bullpen, especially the back end, but the top three are solid as well. And so if you're looking at this purely from a pitching standpoint, I think this is the year they challenge the Pirates. But again, all it takes is one or two injuries, and especially that's the thing I always harp and I always go back to is one or two injuries to anybody in your outfield or infield, and this team is suddenly in for a rough ride. So I probably am going to go out on a limb and take the over, and I will confidently say this team, based on their rotation and bullpen, will challenge the Pirates for that division title.
I didn't notice LoCastro and his weirdly wizardly abilities, and I think that I stand corrected. He is a fantastic leadoff hitter.
That was maybe the quickest character development I have ever encountered.
Oh, shoot.
All right. This team. Well, yep. This team. Let me tell you something about this team.
This garbage team.
The Cincinnati Reds looked like they were, in a good little position to retool and, finally get a rebuild started after kind of sputtering for the last few years. But then Panda came in, and he said, "Screw that. I want to try to win 75 games this year. I want to make a run." um, I just want to hear you go into detail on this one. What were your goals going into this? Do you feel that you have a team that is poised to make any sort of a run this year? Are you hoping
No.
to, cash in on some of these guys that you signed and, get some picks for them? You looking to tool up even more as the season goes on? Where's your head at?
No, I have no intentions of winning games this year.
Cincinnati Reds owner Panda Man, ladies and gentlemen.
Don't spend your money in Cincinnati. No, I honestly, it was one of those things where I have a lot going on in my just life in general. And so one day I'll be like, screw it, we're going to rebuild. And the next day I'll be like, yeah, you want 17 million? Sure, we'll give it to you. Like, that's fine. Oh, I don't know why. One day I was like, I'll just trade for Arenado. Like, that sounds like a good idea. I mean, this has kind of been disastrous all over the place. Approach to the season. I'm probably going to bring up, who is it? I don't even know these guys' names. Solver, I'll probably bring him up this year. Give him a shot. Because
this is why they keep you behind the desk and don't let you. They don't let you talk to the media for this reason.
No, they
You're
don't.
a PR nightmare.
This is all right. So funny story, and I won't take too long with this one, but I signed Colin Short Game McPherson during the off season, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was like, weird name. Signed him, put him in my rotation.
Stamina
was 19 games. Or 19. And I said, that's why nobody was bidding on him. So you can tell how well we do our research. But he has promptly given me a fantastic spring. He has thrown in exactly 16 innings over 12 games and has a 0.8 whip. So, solid there. But
yeah, who's winning
overall?
He's a great opener.
I mean, I might as well just throw him in the rotation.
Yeah.
No, I drafted Al Wallace with the purpose of sending him to that rookie mini camp. He's still got, obviously flat progression, but by the time he hits 26, I'm hoping he'll be a solid back end of rotation kind of guy, which was the long-term plan with him. But outside of that, I've got a lot of work to do on my rotation, and I know that. And bullpen, which are the two things that I neglected. But as far as offensively, I feel pretty confident that this team's going to hit. Billy Frick needed to go. He's available if anybody wants him. And so that's why we went out and got the other first baseman. And Arenado helps because whatever his name is hitting 116. So, that kind of works. But all in all, I have no idea what I'm doing with this team. It changes every day. So just keep sending me trade requests.
And I should also mention that their win total is set 82.5 right now. Which is
way under.
Very generous.
If we hit 75, I'll be shocked.
Well, I can't imagine that tennis will oppose that one.
I have no comment. I want to do.
If you're that confident, all right. Yes, you're not winning that many. I guess we can move on to the Cardinals.
I mean, tennis. You have any thoughts on my debacle in Cincinnati?
I was actually going to mention Colin Short Game McPherson because I was looking at his career, and he was an all-star after he came over. I think he was an international free agent. All-star in 2023, despite only pitching 86 innings, which was really weird from the voters, but he was fantastic that year. Then he basically went from that to being, only pitching in 10 games the next year. Then he was out of the league in 2025. And now he's going to play a prominent role in your rotation or bullpen or pitching setup. So I think he's had a very interesting major league career. And I'm excited to watch where it goes next, honestly. At 42 young years of age.
He's being nice.
All right, so here we go with the St. Louis Cardinals, who they lost a lot of pieces. They gained a few. Last year, they barely missed the playoffs. I think they missed it by 2 games, maybe. They finished with 89 wins. This year, they're expected to take a step back with 76 and a half being their mark. Not all at once, please.
Oh, 76 on it. Oh, okay. Wow. Okay, never mind. Cincinnati's projection was actually very high, considering.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what Vegas is thinking.
Yeah.
I think maybe he had too much to drink last night when he was doing these, and maybe got a little bit carried away and saw some things, or maybe didn't see some things that he should have.
Should have taken note of.
Yeah,
But
one
here we are.
guy I'm excited by on the Cardinals is former first rounder Mike Schick and Schick. I had this issue last year when I was mentioning that he was a rookie and I was excited for him, but he had a poor rookie campaign. I am once again excited for him for this next year in 2027. He came back, had a fantastic spring, got on base, hit home runs. Excuse me, did not hit home runs, but had a lot of hits and walks and all that good stuff. And I think that the rotation has some problems with rookie Chet Ubetcha, who is not going to comment on that. But he looks to be promising, even if he is only a 49 rank. And of course, Steven Strasburg, who is still hanging around in the league after bouncing around with all these teams, former 2-time All-Star in the history of League of Controversy, and is looking to have another fantastic season. I do think this team fights for a playoff spot. I know it's going to be tough with the AL East teams and the Cubs and the Pirates, but 76.5 is pretty low for them. I'm going to take the over.
You didn't mention the Reds. What's up with that? No, I'm just joking.
That 500 spot,
Their owner doesn't seem very confident in them, so we're not very confident in them now.
All right. Yeah, that's fair. Looking at the Cardinals, I don't think they're as good as the Reds. No, let's not go there. Overall, I like the bullpen that they put together with the top 3 in there. But again, I get this weird feeling of like they're sort of stuck a little bit where maybe Cincinnati is too. You've got a lot of younger players who are kind of just coming into their own. And then you've got this weird mix of like just older players that, have been placed into this team in different roles and in some ways seem out of place. So they kind of seem like they're stuck in limbo. And I think I'd have to agree. They're probably going to hover around 500 and really struggle to compete in the National League for even a wild card spot, just because they are sort of in this limbo state right now.
Now we're going to talk about the Brewers, who have been in last or at least second to last for the last 4 years or so, last 4 or 5 years, I believe. Last year wasn't any different, of course, won 61 games. They went and they drafted, albeit a great reliever, but they did draft a reliever with the number 2 or 3 pick. Anyway, spent a top 5 pick on Rick Spades, a reliever, and right now they are projected to hit 66.5 wins.
The one thing I'll say is that I'm very impressed with the Brewers. They draft a guy, he's obviously major league ready, and they're putting him at the front of the bullpen. We can quibble with the value and all sorts of things. And, Rick Spades, although he should be a fantastic pitcher in this league, is still a reliever. And I think we've been talking about a minute too long on this point now. We've been being a dead horse at this point. But this team is very young, very new. They have 3 rookies in the rotation in Silas Hall, Michael Harper, and Jose Fernandez. And hopefully Patrick Sandoval and Brandon Woodruff can kind of mentor these guys. I know that Sandoval hasn't had the greatest career, and Woodruff is the same with him. He's had over a career 5 ERA, but they've still been in the league. They know how to do things on a day in, day out basis. And how those 3 pitchers turn out will be crucial to how the Brewers' future looks. 66.5 is pretty low in my opinion. Yeah, I think they do win near 70 games. I'm going to go with the over.
Yeah, I'm going to take the over on this one too. I think at the end of the day, this is a team that looks like they should be able to win more than 66 games, maybe 67, maybe 68. But I would have to say that even in the National League, they have enough pieces to probably get over that hump and probably again use that rotation. Even as poor as the back end might be, or as slated with rookies as it is, I think ultimately that rotation will be able to hold it together at least enough to get them to probably around that 70 win mark. So I agree. I'll take the over on this one.
All right, moving on to our very last division. Excuse me. And surprisingly enough, the defending world champion and 118 win Dodgers will not be the first team we talk about, as they are only projected second in the division this year. Projected first are the Colorado Rockies, who won the wild card against the Mets last year and eventually got bounced in the NLDS. They brought in Aaron Judge. Didn't really lose a whole lot of what I would consider key pieces. So they do appear to be at least as good. Vegas does have them at 99.5, though.
The one thing I'll say about the Rockies looking at this team for the first time in a while is, other than Ronald Jeremy, who remains fantastic at second base, this team is very, very slow. Aaron Judge leads the way, and I know that Aaron Judge has had a fantastic career and gets on base at a very high clip, but he's just slow. And the guys behind him, or excuse me, in one case, the girl behind him and Danielle Parada, are very, very slow. And I don't know if that's going to be a problem with left on base or, clogging up the base paths, what sort of things. But ultimately, the job Ritz has done is rebuild and slowly improving this team is very impressive. They should be division favorites for the first time in so long. They won 91 games last year, and with a weaker Dodgers team, they should be poised to take more games off the Dodgers and take that step forward. I don't know if I'm going to say that they will win 100 games, but I think they'll be in the 97, 98 range. If I take the under, it'll be very, very slightly. Been very impressed by this rebuild.
I'll take the over. I think they have one of the best pitching staffs in all of baseball easily. And clearly, they're not worried about speed. They're worried about defense and pitching and not giving up a lot of runs, and then probably hitting those home runs to get the guys in and banking on the high on base percentages to do the trick as well. And so I think this team has come up with a strategy. They've filled their roster with guys that fit that. And I think this year they're going to be a force to be reckoned with, especially on the pitching side of things. And so I'm going to take the over. I think this is the clear favorite coming out of the gates this year. If I had to pick somebody right now, it would probably be the Rockies to go on and repeat.
Now we're going to swing on back to the previously mentioned Dodgers, who, like I said, won 118 games, took the World Series last season. This year they are projected to hit only 86.5 wins, which would be a monster downgrade from last year.
Yeah, as I mentioned before, you can pretty much pencil in Walker Buehler for contention in the Cy Young race. You can probably give him 20 wins as well right off the bat. That means they only need to find 66 from the other four guys in the rotation, which ultimately will be tough considering the lack of quality as compared to previous years. But they're ready to pull those guys early, get in the bullpen with Urias and McLaughlin, Sims, and the rest of the guys are very solid as well. I think that they look fantastic again. I'm glad to see BB Fan having an amazing career. He had a 385 on base last year, coming off a 392 with the Rays in the year prior, and looks to hit leadoff again. This is just very good to see. I've always liked BB Fan. I've always been a fan of BB Fan, and when I have the opportunity to talk with him in the past, he seemed very reasonable, and I'm glad to watch him play again this year and headline the lineup of the Los Angeles Dodgers. I'm going to take the over.
My only question is, how does BP Fan not have a 1700 OPS? No, that's a conversation for another day. But um, I would definitely probably say this team will be solid, but I don't see them beating out Colorado for the top spot. Um, the rotation is suspect at best in several spots, and so will they get 86 wins? Yes. Will they scratch 90? Possibly. But ultimately, I see them falling behind the Rockies and ultimately this year falling short, way short in the playoffs when pitching matters and you got to have a reliever or you have to have a starting pitcher that can come in and not give up 25 runs in a game. So
Now, the Padres were pretty active in the offseason this year. They brought back Fernando Tatis, brought in Yordan Alvarez from the Astros, Josh Bell from the Angels, and Asher Davis from the Royals, just to name a few. They only won 64 games last year, but they are now projected to hit 77 and a half this year. A team that appears to be on the rise and hopefully can build on some of that momentum.
Yeah, BK, you just have to wonder about team chemistry. Tatis was a leader for years in the clubhouse, and he goes over to Kansas City for a year, and now he's back with San Diego. But now they're bringing in Corey Seager, and Seager gets the shortstop role while Tatis gets relegated to second, and you just wonder how the dynamics are working there in terms of that. Jordan Alvarez remains one of the best hitters in baseball, if not the best, and I have no confidence that he will continue to hit outside of Houston in San Diego now. And also, Jay Slater leads a rotation that is, not the greatest, but should win a fair share of games in this division. I think they're going to finish over 500. I think it'll be close, but I think I'm going to take the over on 77 and a half.
yeah, Asher Davis is a head scratching move. You know, starting pitching wise, it's kind of an interesting big contract to hand out, especially for a team that doesn't really seem to be all that close to competing in the strong division. And, this year, you're going into the season with 4 relief pitchers. That's it. If that is exactly how it stays, and knowing how pitching is going to get beat up in this league, I would put them at the under. Yeah, unless they drastically improve either the rotation or just add some more depth. Because you've got guys like Baria and Quantrill that are going to get smashed this year, and you're not going to have anybody to come in because they're all going to be throwing 300 innings out of the bullpen. So, yeah, this team is not going to make 500, and I would put them at the under of 77 wins.
Moving along to Arizona, who finished with 66 and 96 record last year. They did make a couple of moves in the offseason. They signed Jeremy Wilkinson and starting pitcher Jeremy Albosta. However, it doesn't appear that the moves that they made are going to be enough to put them into that playoff race like they were hoping. And Vegas does not seem to think so either, as their projected win total sits at 71 and a half.
Yeah, Eloy Jimenez had a breakout campaign last year in his first year with Arizona, but ultimately there's a lot to not like too much about this team. You have a very slow DH in Pablo Gonzalez, and he's hit decently in the past, but he's just out there clogging up the bases. He can't even score on fly balls deep into the outfield. It's pretty embarrassing to watch, honestly. Mike Talkman is getting paid $15 million a year to be pretty poor. No pop in his game. He gets on base decently, but he's not worth $15 million for sure. Rotation, not a lot to like. You're bringing up Manny I just butchered that completely. So sorry to Manny. In addition to Jason McNamara, and they look to be the future of the Diamondbacks. But as of now, I don't think this team is going to be very successful. I think it'll win under 71 and a half games.
I put them at over. I like them a little bit more than even the Padres. I think they've got better depth in their bullpen. I think their rotation is, while not, not necessarily amazing. I think at the end of the day, you're looking at a rotation that's young, that's only going to get better. And then, yes, we've got a couple guys that are getting paid way too much. But from a standpoint of even offensively, I think you've got a better top to bottom lineup that can be put together. And, ultimately, you've got the speed and you've got the depth in your bullpen. I think this team wins more than 71 games. I think, honestly, they're probably closer to 500. And definitely, I think they're better than the Padres overall. So,
Wow, that was a bold one, I will say. That is definitely one that I will be saving that one for the playoff pod, and we're gonna see how that take ages on us. Our very last team of the day is going to be the San Francisco Giants. Barry Bonds is in his second season now with the Giants. This will be the first season of what's being expected rebuild. Um, do you think that Bonds can get his guys juiced up enough to potentially make a run, or do they have no shot?
I think that the Giants are loading up on defense right now, which is very funny because if Barry Bonds had played defense well in the Game 6 of the 2002 World Series, maybe he would have a ring for that year. Ultimately, only time will tell if guys who have had very largely unsuccessful offensive careers in the past, like Salvador Perez, Kevin Kiermaier, Lorenzo Cain, Yolmer Sanchez, and the biggest offender of them all, Mitsuo, will somehow all have career years in San Francisco. But this is a team that's loading up on defense right now, trying to help their rotation. Michael Arroyo, Wally Montana, and the bunch succeed. And I don't know if it's going to go well, but I do think that they can get over 70.5 wins. I think that sometimes grinding out games will help them, and they'll win a lot of 2-0, 1-0, 2-1 games. And I can't say I'm excited to see it, but I'm sure that wins are wins, and Giants fans will be happy regardless of how it happens.
yeah, offensively, this team's going to struggle. But again, I think they've got a strategy. I just don't. Similar to the Rockies, they just haven't executed it as well. They've given some guys a lot of money that ultimately is going to handicap your team. I think in the long run, as you're running teams, you have to keep in mind, signing guys to $55 million contracts. It just doesn't. It's not practical for sustaining the rest of your roster. Every single year, you have to field a team of 26 guys that can actually, or 25 guys that can actually play and help your team out. And if you've got, a third of your cap locked into one player, it's going to make it very difficult to do so, to bring in those pieces that you need in free agency. And so while I like the top three of the rotation, I really think this team is ever going to struggle to finally get there. They just don't have enough cap coming off their books quickly enough. Now, if we look at their over-under, 70.5, the rotation will get them there pretty easily. I'd be shocked if this team wasn't hovering somewhere around 500. And again, I'll go out on a limb. I think this team is even better than the Padres. So I don't know who was making this, but they just did not do a good job. No, I really think this team is even better than Padres just based on those starting pitchers. But long term, this team has a pretty bleak outlook.
You mentioned paying $55 million a year to Michael Arroyo. That actually has a $1 million raise attached to it, I believe. Just because you weren't around for when he was signed, I just wanted to let you in on what his contract was.
So was that 11 years then?
It was 15 years. This was before we had a cap. This is actually the reason we have a cap on how long you can sign a guy for. But he was signed for 15 years at a total of $855 million. And so obviously
by this owner or by a different owner?
It was by this owner. He had actually just joined the league that day or maybe the day before. Interestingly enough, immediately made that splash. So far, he hasn't really quite lived up to the contract, only being an all-star 2 times. But I am
you can't live up to that contract. I mean, he's
going
getting
to win a World Series.
Always a great sign when your contract gets the league rules changed. Either you feel really good because you did something and you have a legacy, or you just feel really bad because now no one else can do it.
Yeah. Okay. So let's put this in perspective, right? So he's getting paid $55 million. The next guy is SB Hedger getting paid $36, but he's got a decrease on his. So I mean, That's astronomical. Um, yeah, that's jeez. Everybody else below, like that's a $20 cap difference just in those two alone. Not to mention one of them's going backwards, the other one's going forward. So, oh man, that's rough. I don't even know what you do with that unless you like just leave and have someone else take over and just cut the guy. I, I mean, even as good as he is, if I was a new owner taking over that team, I'd cut him just to get that cap back.
Yeah, that $65 million payout when he's 36 years old will be
It's gonna
interesting.
suck. Yeah.
I don't. Yeah, I can't imagine that it's going to be worth it in the long run. But hopefully they can take advantage of it now and try to make another push before he's old and gray and taking up half of their salary cap. So
Good
that is
luck.
that wraps up all the over unders. I was just going to kind of leave this open for you guys if you had any other little takes you want to throw out there, any predictions or just anything in general. You guys have the floor.
Look, unlike my co-host, I'm out here trying to avoid the soundbite. I'm being very congenial. I think that my division rivals are all going to be better than I am. I think that I'm going to lose 100 games, and it's always about managing your expectations because if you can exceed them, you'll be very happy. I have no sound bites to give.
So you think?
Colorado will win. Minnesota is going to be a winner this year because they got me when I was feeling stupid and gave them a first round pick for Arenado. And we will probably win 70 games if we're lucky. And on the NL side, I would definitely have to go ahead and let's see, who are we going to pick? It can't be Detroit. That would be too easy. Let's go ahead and say, as much as they've talked trash about them, let's pick the New York Yankees to win out of the East this year.
Wow.
Wow.
Wow. I think we're just supposed to just log out now. I don't think I even need to give an inning. I mean, I'm sure that Indecker will be very, very happy to hear that. I'm not sure that I share those sentiments, but I'm wishing you the best. I have a feeling that Twitter's going to be on your ass for this one, but you know, I hope they take it easy on you.
Hey, that's all right. You win some, you lose some.
Well, that's all we have time for today. There's a Final Four game going on right now, and none of the three of us want to miss the second half of that. So we're going to be logging off for now. Thank you all for tuning in. It was great to be back out here. It was especially great to have our special guest and, maybe a solidified co-host in Panda. Great to have you back. Really missed you, buddy.
It's been good to be back, and I can't wait till the playoff podcast when I prove you all wrong.
And of course, always great to have Tennis and his insight on it. Tennis will always be the most prepared guy in the studio, no matter what. Even if he throws some notes together at the last minute, he's always going to be the most knowledgeable on the subject we're on. So it's always an absolute pleasure to have you on the other end.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
All right, guys. Well, good luck to everyone this season. As I said before, look forward to my preseason preview article to come out here in the next couple days. And yeah, see you later, guys.